In this episode, I sat down with Sophie Allen, the CMO of Web.20 Ranker, and I unfold all the exciting things about automation. Sophie automated most of the HR work in her company, which helped the team to reduce time and cost. Do you know what else she's automated? Her driver itinerary, content writing, podcasting, and many more. Let's get into how to automate most of your workflows and save time.
So I started marketing probably 10 years ago now, doing little projects. I actually started in social media. So I was doing social media for a couple of different businesses in Kansas City, which is where I used to live. Then I got started doing SEO for a couple different websites that were more local focused. That was before I knew a ton about local SEO. But then I kind of transferred from that local side into working with businesses that were national. A lot of tech, a lot of insurance firms, a lot of essentially anything that would be thought of as more of an older industry, where it was more of a parent who was kind of passing it off to their child or trying to step out of the business, and we would come in and modernize it. So I got a lot of experience in SEO that way. And then I started working at Web.20 Ranker after I got my foot in the door at the other agency. And then I have been working with them for probably 3 years now. I was doing SEO and managing some campaigns, and now I am the Chief Marketing Officer at Web.20. So I do all the marketing.
Okay.
Yes.
That's cool.
So I do all the marketing, management for them with our team, but then I also handle a lot of the automations, like you said. And that has kind of been where I really like to play around, because it's very in-depth and can get very technical.
Yes. All right. Oh, how does it feel like being the CMO at Web.20? How big is your team?
I have two that are directly under me. Then we have a customer success team that kind of works in tandem with us. I have a small team though, because a lot of the stuff I do is automated. So since a lot of it is processes we do over and over again, like our podcast or blog creation, things like that, it can be standardized, and then I use automation to cut down how much manual work there is to be done.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. What do you automate right now within the company? Podcast, content briefs, or content, or just blogs?
So
from A to Z?
Everything I do is pretty standardized with SOPs and things like that. So once you have those SOPs, you can work to automate generally most of it. And the longer I've worked there, the more that I've learned. I actually learned a lot of the automation that I do from Mike Milas. So when I started working there, he was doing a lot of the automation, and he was showing me how to do it. And I am very type A, that I'm very analytical, but automation is a little bit creative because you have to think of how to solve a problem. A lot of software doesn't play nice together, so you'll have to find workarounds and things like that. So that's kind of where I got started in it. I love it, and it's kind of the thing I love to do on the side too. I do a little automation for some other clients that I have myself, but it can be very time consuming. So you can spend a whole day just trying to automate a couple different things.
Awesome. Okay, so give me an example. How do you, for example, automate a podcast?
So
What's happening? Because I do everything manually over here.
So we were doing a lot of it manually, and it was taking up so much time. And I have a small team, so I don't have a lot of extra hourly resources. So we will automate everything once we get the guest. So that's probably the most manual part, is reaching out to whoever we're going to have as our guest and then coordinating with them. But then once we have that guest, I have a whole sequence that starts off with a form. So any of my team will fill out this quick form, who they are. Actually, I just moved that. So it's part of the Calendly, which you use in your podcast scheduling too.
Yeah.
So you can use that as your trigger, and then that will kind of set off building out all the forms, asking for all of their images, building out the itinerary that we use, because that is semi-standardized. We do have to go in and add, news and things like that for the week that we're going to talk about. But we can standardize all of the messaging with them, and then any follow-up. There's a lot of promotion tasks. So how you do all your videos and things like that to promote the podcast, that will all be automated to assign the tasks. Some of it is automated, like it will create a template image, but I don't like using automation for images always because then it gets a little bit dry. Like it will be the same every week. So that part I haven't figured out how to automate entirely yet. I've been looking at some different AI image automation, but I don't know. I'm picky about my images and graphics.
How do you also automate those like short videos as well? I'm doing.
Some of them. So the ones that you're talking in with your face, I don't know that you could automate, but you can automate like templates into those videos. So you can add placeholders for different call to actions or titles and things like that. We haven't played around with that a lot. I have been working on automating some other things, so the podcast has kind of been just chugging along with what I've got going now, but I have a second round of automation stuff I want to do. It's just, like I said, there's always stuff you can automate, so it's kind of prioritizing what is most important at the time.
Yeah, for me was that Calendly is free, and that's the only part of the, I guess, quote quote automation that I have. It's like I just, hey, you book a time you want, and then they just keep booking. So I don't really remember, or I don't really know who is who. Well, not who is who, but like who is on what day because it's on my calendar already. So then, what other areas do you within your marketing workflow do you automate?
So I automate a lot of the blog creation. So that'll be a lot of creating content briefs, templates, not for Web.20, but for my own website I have on the side that I like play around with. I have been implementing ChatGPT automation, so you can actually plug that into Zapier or Pabbly, and then you can use the triggers, whatever trigger you're using, to kind of generate different parts of the blog. I know Mike's been working on it at Web.22. They have a tool they're coming out with, but what I'm doing is a little bit simpler because some of my clients are small businesses, so they don't have a lot of money, so they struggle with content creation. So I can write a lot of short descriptions for social copy, or the blog I had to break out into sections and it got a little dicey, but it's doable. So you can even write it. It's just a matter of getting your prompts to be correct and kind of tight, because it will push it out for you the way I have it set up. So I have it set up so that it will write the social copy and then post it for me. So I don't even look at it. But some of those clients I have that I'm using it on are pretty low budget. So they don't have the money to have a full-time social media person who's writing the content. I mean, I do look it over, but the more you can automate, the more solutions you can find for someone who doesn't have a huge budget.
Awesome. Do you code for this, or
No? So
what do you?
I do not code. I used to use mostly Zapier. That was what I only used when I started, and then we started using High Level, which that is an automation platform in itself. It's a little bit more than automation because it does the CRM and all that. But they've added a lot more tools into their automation system, so they natively integrate with Google Sheets and a couple others now, and I think they're adding more. But what I use now is Pabbly, because it's cheaper. So I was using Zapier, and it was getting to be like over $500-$600 a month, which was just too much for what I was doing. I mean, I wasn't running a multi-million-dollar business with it or anything, so I didn't have the budget to spend. But then I discovered Pabbly will actually provide a lot more information. So it can parse a lot more data. So with Zapier, a software might have 5 triggers, but with Pabbly, there might be 10 or 20 different triggers you can use, because it's not as built for a front-end user. So it's a little bit more work to map out the fields and things like that, but you get more data, so you can do more with it.
Awesome. I want you to send me those links. I mean, Zapier I'm familiar with, but I haven't seen or used Pabbly. What's
Pabbly. So
Pabbly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's Pabbly, which they are a little bit more in their infancy. There is still some, I've had a couple issues with them with different automations, but I've also had issues with Zapier. So for a long time we were having issues where the gravity forms weren't triggering, and it wasn't anything random. It was every form wasn't working. So I mean, I feel like every tool is not going to work 100% of the time. There's going to be issues, but over time they have gotten a lot better, and they have better support, which is one thing I like. So if I do have an issue or something's not working, a connection isn't sticking, I can reach out to them and they message me within an hour, maybe a couple hours, depending on when I reach out.
Yeah.
But
Hi, if you listen to this far, thank you so much for listening. And if you enjoyed the show, please leave me a review on either Apple Podcast, Spotify, or my YouTube channel. If you have any feedback for the show, please let me know on the Aspiring CMO Podcast social media pages on Facebook and Instagram, or send me an email on my website. Now, let's get back to the episode. Perfect. Okay, so walk me through like your I guess your brain process when you start, like, here's a problem, and then you not like immediately go solve it, just one problem at a time. You're probably thinking like, okay, how can I make it work multiple times, right, without your input? So like, how do you, I guess, I don't know, like explain the automation process in your brain to someone who is maybe new to it, or like wanna automate something in there?
So the first thing I always think about is making a list of what is done more than 3 or 4 times. So if you do something more than 3 or 4 times, it can probably be automated. I don't know who told me that. I think it might have been Mark, but they said 3 or 4 times, which before that I would have things that I would do over and over, and it was kind of, I guess, just an understood thing in my brain. But that rule has kind of helped me to identify more things I can automate, because it's kind of a very big problem. So you can start from anywhere. So I'll get that list of what I've done 3 or 4 times, or what the client's done 3 or 4 times. And then I will see exactly what tools they're using now. Because a lot of times they are using tools that are completely manual. Like sending their Google, I was working with someone who sent their Google Calendar instead of using a Calendly, where it's a lot more structured and they can ask specific questions. So sometimes it's matching them with the right tools first, and then you can cut down on the tasks they're having to do. Then I will take any SOPs they have. So if you have written SOPs at all, some businesses don't have them, so they kind of have to give me a rough idea of what's happening. Then I will walk through that and just see exactly what follows a standard process. So something like writing a blog, that's a little bit more obtuse. It's not going to be super structured. But something like scheduling meetings or sending follow-up emails or your social media campaigns, those are things that you can automate entirely. We've automated a lot of the HR work that we do at Web.20, so that's I took on a whole process to build out our automated HR system, because I liked automation so much. So once you get in there and see, it's very visual. So I would definitely recommend using something like Zapier first if you're brand new at automation, because it's more user friendly. If you do not know a lot about automation or APIs or how webhooks work, things like that, Zapier is going to be more of your friend. They make it to be more for a business, like a business owner could use Zapier. I have my mom that uses Zapier, but Pabbly, I don't know that would be, I would have to train her on it.
So is Pabbly more like complex?
A little bit. So there's a little bit more of a learning curve. Zapier, because it's meant for they want to reach a broader audience essentially, so they make it easier to use. The fields will be labeled. So for example, in Gravity Forms, which is a common form builder, each of those fields is labeled with a number. And those numbers then correlate to what data is pulling into the field. So you kind of have to match up all of these data points to get it to pull in correctly and map the data. But with Zapier, that's all done for you. So it will say like name, and then you've got the name field. So it takes away a step. Whereas Pabbly, they number it, so it would be field 10 or whatever. But if you don't know how to go in and look at the field numbers and gravity forms, it would be a little harder. So Zapier is definitely what I would recommend for someone first. Just look at what you can do repeatedly and then start there. And then I would look at your SOPs, because your SOPs are probably going to line up visually with what is in Zapier. And then also all of the automation tools, like you can type in, I want to use Google Docs, and it will tell you everything Google Docs can do. So Zapier will give you a lot of use cases. So it'll say, if you have a Calendly booking link, you can do this with Google Docs, and you can do this with your email, and you can do this with Facebook. So it'll give you a little bit more ideas to kind of start your journey, because those ideas kind of started me on a path. And then I would think, oh, well, if I can do this with Google Docs, then maybe I can do this with an Enter to Win software or whatever I'm working on at the time. But I would definitely look at all those ideas with Zapier.
Awesome. Cool. And how to say? Oh man, brain fart. Other than automation, how else do you spend your day as CMO?
Oh, as CMO. So I manage a lot of the product launches that we do, different sales, content creation. We have a lot of product lines at Web.20, so it's a lot more product based. So that takes up a lot of time. I also do a lot of the website copy, updating all the emails. Well, I don't write them, but I will have one of my team write them, and then we kind of collaborate on editing it. I kind of have my hands in a lot since our team is small, and I have a little bit of a control problem. So I like to be in everything. That's why I was talking to Mads about delegating at the conference, which I'm still struggling with. But that takes up a lot of my day. It's a lot of just random whatever comes up for marketing, because we have so many different products and brands. They have a couple other software companies that I also help with a little bit. So it is very different every day.
Wow, that's so okay. So let's get into a little bit of lifestyle question here, because I see you're doing a lot, and not only are you, doing all for your Web.20 company, but you're also having clients. Plus, you're traveling, because I follow you on Instagram and I see all your posts. So my question is, how do you manage your time doing so many things at once?
I was introduced to Asana back at my old agency that I worked for when I worked with the 10 million clients. So that was a lot more structured, and that's kind of where I learned how to structure my tasks and write everything out, because when you're doing so many random things, you will forget a lot. You'll forget a lot of things, and you'll wake up in the middle of the night and remember, I didn't send that email. So the automation and Asana can kind of tie in together, because I can automate my task creation based on what I'm working on. So like with the blogs that we write, for example, all of that process is pretty much automated besides the writing of it. Like all the task creation, everything that's assigned. So there's a flexible SOP that's happening. So I can stay up to date on what they're doing without actually having to be in the project, because it will send you emails of, these are the things that are due in the next week. So then it's almost like a personal assistant. That will provide you with updates on what you have to do when, and then you can also see like who's completed how much work, which is helpful for my team, so I can see exactly what they're doing.
I see. I think I looked at Asana a little bit. It looked quite complex. Like you really have to have like a logical thinking, and like really you have to figure it out first. No, like I had a friend, and he was like, he got anxiety from Asana. I mean, I was laughing because at him, because I didn't have to deal with those things, but you know, yeah, I don't know. I heard mixed reviews about Asana.
It's definitely a reflection of your brain. So if you think, however you think, that's how your boards are going to be organized. I actually just had to go and clean all mine up, because I just dropped random ideas in there, things I know I need to get done, and all of a sudden there were like 100 things in my board that had no home. So I just had to go through and clean it up. I would recommend just getting a simple structure. Because you can make it as simple as you want. A lot of people just overcomplicate stuff, which is, I've found time and time again, especially in automation, you see exactly how complicated things are when they start explaining to you why they're doing the same thing.
Yeah, I think automation can get very complex as well, like depending on what trigger what that person will receive. Do you recommend to just have like one very simple workflow, or do you do this like, oh, if she didn't click or like she did click, then this happens? Or
So that I can automate. I don't get that deep with it. With Web.20 we do, because that's a lot more structure. There's a lot more going on. But a lot of that you can automate in your email platform, like ActiveCampaign. They'll have their own automation software, whatever email you're using. But the best tool I found besides Zapier and Pabbly is really high level. I mean, they have like ClickUp and stuff like that. I've never really played around with ClickUp too much. I've been in there a little bit.
I thought ClickUp is like project management tool.
Yes, but you can automate within there. Like I said, I haven't played around with it a lot. That's Mike was showing me it, but you can automate with that too. Because what I found is a lot of the softwares, like they say they're only for this one thing, but really you can use it for anything. So like high level, that's what we are going to be using for a lot of the different internal softwares that we need, just because it does the most. It does things internally that others don't. So like whatever CRM you're using, if it's not high level, like if you're using HubSpot or whatever different CRM there is, that is just one little bubble. And once you take that data outside of that environment, it isn't as easy to work with. But with high level, everything is inside of it. So I do use Asana for my own agency a little bit, but I'm looking at moving a lot of it into high level because it's a CRM, so I can have all my contacts in there. But you can automate everything, and then they have a capability that I haven't found with a lot of other platforms, at least for the same price, where you can create like custom fields and custom values. So based on if they went to this one conference 3 years ago that you have a field for, you can automate based on that. Or automate based on specific dates, like when their anniversary is or when their last call was. So that the call one's really helpful in order to follow up with your clients. So you can avoid stale leads, stale clients, people you don't talk to in 6 months, and then all of a sudden they leave. So that's been a big help. The only thing with high level is that is a lot of work. So that took me probably like 2 years to learn the ins and outs of it.
Yeah.
And I don't like saying I'm an expert in high level, but everyone else says that just because out of necessity. No one else at our company wanted to learn it, and so I kind of just took it on.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Because I think we were using high level a little bit, and I think I just didn't go back to it ever.
It's very hard when you start. It's very hard because it's
like I don't.
It doesn't have structure, which is a negative and a positive. So it's a positive because you can do anything with it, but it's a negative because it can do anything. So you don't really have guidance on how to use it. They have a lot of videos, but unless you had a specific use case, like an agency, I don't know that I would dive into it.
So you wouldn't recommend high level for like a solopreneur or like a small company?
I use it with I have a couple companies that use it, but I manage it. So if you're wanting to give it to your clients, I would invest in it, but just know it's going to take time. There's also a lot of high level consultants and stuff. I do a little bit of that on the side. I'll help set up different automations and different things. So they have what's called a snapshot. So it's essentially like a template that you can put into your account, which will cut down a lot of the work. So that I've built out a couple of those over the periods of time. Those will help you. If anyone ever has questions, they can just reach out to me on Facebook or whatever too, because a lot of times, with high level specifically, they even support will be like, you can't do this. They'll tell you, you cannot do this. And every time I have found a workaround. of how you can do it. But that's just because I've been using it for so long. So some of those
Yeah.
weird little quirky questions, if anyone has those, they can reach out to me on Facebook. I'm always happy to help.
Amazing. That's so nice of you. And yeah, okay. So another question for aspiring CMOs is that what would you recommend for them to get started with? Because right now you're doing a lot of high level stuff. I mean, okay, pun intended. uh, but like for someone who is starting marketing or like want to get better at marketing, what do you recommend for them?
I would recommend just starting somewhere. So just start somewhere at a company that you think can offer you more learning, can teach you more, can get you higher, and just take on more work. Honestly, that is how I got where I am. So I have a lot of weird skills that I've acquired over the years that helped. But I actually started at Web.20 just writing. So I was consulting. I wasn't even actually working for them. I was just writing on the side because I was bored. And I had met one of the owners at an event, and he needed some help, and I know SEO. So I have the SEO background, and I also went to school for writing. So I started writing for them, and then they just kept giving me more and more work, and I kept learning new things, and over time it just grew into what it is now. So I would just say start somewhere and start learning, because a lot of people get caught up in taking courses and trying to teach themselves all these skills, and in reality the only thing you really need is the real life. I mean, you do need the courses and the skills, but the real life experiences and showing that you're reliable and accountable and that you're going to take on more responsibility, that's a big thing, because being a CMO is a lot of random work, because marketing is very broad, especially if you're going to, depending on where you're going to work. I mean, it could be a couple things, but it's going to be a lot of flexibility, and you have to be able to take on new tasks without, griping about it.
Yes, I understand. And my first marketing job actually, my first paid marketing job, because I did like not like free work before, but I was the one person marketing department.
Oh, wow.
I was I was the marketing department. I'm not saying I was good, okay, but like because I was the only one, I think I can say I was the best and the worst at the same time.
Marketing is like that.
Yeah, but it definitely gave me.
Marketing is always the
Yeah.
smallest team I have found. Anywhere I go, the marketing team is the smallest. And they get the last of the budget, the last of everything.
It's so interesting. I don't understand. I mean, I kind of get it why, but at the same time, I don't. Because if you don't tell people about your product, how can they even dare to open your wallet
Yeah.
to buy
With Web
from you,
with Web
And
20, it's
it's
not
weird.
like, I mean, they're big enough that they understand the value of marketing, but a lot of, like I said, I work with smaller businesses. They do not understand. They do not understand the concept that it makes so much sense to you and I, but to them they're like, I don't need to spend this $300. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. Oh my God. Like me asking for budget. Okay, I mean in fairness it was COVID as well, but we were making zero money. So I was like, well, can we run ads? But then we were making zero money, so it was like this back and forth, back and forth.
You have to spend money to
Yo,
make
I
money.
cannot
You
run
have
it.
to spend money to make money.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. All right, but give me an example. It's like a very, very specific example of what you automated in SEO. Oh, what did you? I guess like a mini step by step, because like this is a podcast. I don't think people can visually see it, but yeah, just give us an example.
One thing I've automated for myself in SEO, not for a business, is writing content. I travel a lot. So I will have just test what I can write about and rank for with ChatGPT. So I had made a form that essentially was what the city was, what the keyword I wanted to rank for was, and then a little bit of notes that I would put in. And then I had written out very structured prompts inside of the automations so that the form field data would map into the prompts. And then I would write sections of the blog using ChatGPT. So I was doing about 2 paragraphs per automation of GPT because there's limits on how long it will run. So like you can't write a 10,000 word article with Pabbly integration of ChatGPT. It has to be short snippets. But I had figured out how to manipulate the prompts so that each one would kind of daisy chain off the one before it, and then connect WordPress so that all of that is then put into the blog as a draft. And then I haven't gotten to the point where I want to publish it myself because I want to tweak the prompts a little more. But once I get to the point where I just publish it with the automation, I will then publish it to all the social platforms, and then I'll syndicate it out on a couple different sites, all with the automation. So that's been one that's been helpful,
Wow.
but it took me a whole day just to figure out how to play with the prompts to get them to trigger, because some of them weren't connected. So like it would do one prompt and, you know, spit out that copy, but then the copy after it wouldn't relate to the copy before it. So there is a lot of tweaking you have to do. And I mean, you know, with the prompts and stuff, how just one little word or different sentence can change the output. But
So how does it actually look like? So it populates one section, and then based on that section, it populates the next
yeah,
section.
so I'll use
And
I'll use the section that I just created to kind of reference it, and then it will create the section after it. And then after that, it converts it all to HTML, and then that gets put onto WordPress. And then that
Wow.
will be published out once I test it a little more.
That's so cool. Why don't you make like automation courses, man? Like,
I don't have
it's
time.
really cool.
I don't have time. But automate. Okay, so one thing that was when I was traveling, when you were messaging me, I was automating my itineraries. So I would tell it what city I wanted to go to, and then it would generate the itinerary, publish it on my website in HTML, and then I would use that web page as like my itinerary for the day when I was traveling. And these people I met were just mind blown because they were like manually researching and writing out everything, and I had made them one in 10 minutes. So automation can be used in anything, really.
Yeah, I'm just gonna put all your contacts in the show notes, but like, please tell the audience like where can they find you mostly.
So you can find me on Facebook, Sophie Allen. I'm in the local client takeover Facebook group. If you want to reach out in there, there's a lot of automation and other marketers in there you can join. You can also reach me at Sophie at Power Position SEO, or Sophie.Allen at Web.20 Ranker is my Web.20 Ranker email too. So there's a lot of ways you can reach me.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Sophie. I hope you have a
You
great day.
too. Bye.